am working on my ability to let go, to decide what projects are worth my time and attention, what's worth pushing harder for the sake of a result versus just showing up and letting the process itself be the result. I will admit I was ambitious in my desire to get a Hobonichi Cousin, even a Hobonichi Cousin avec, which is what this journal is. It is a half year. It was dated July through December 2025, and my goal was to journal every single day, which I mostly did. However, there are some blank spots still left throughout the journal, and I've been hanging on to it all this time with the idea that I would go back and backfill some of that space so that it's a nice, clean, even, professional-looking journal. But as of late, I have not touched this journal, and I thought if I were to go back now and fill in some of that empty space, it wouldn't be a proper time capsule of this particular set of 6 months, because I'm writing from a perspective that is 6 months to a year ahead of where I was when I was in this journal. So today, I am officially closing the book, you might say, and calling this journal completed. I am freeing myself of this burden and letting the experience of having journaled be the product that I get out of this experience rather than a perfectly curated journal. And so I thought, let's just sit down and flip through these pages together and see what came of this book. So I did not do any particular decoration on this book. I think I was a little afraid to kind of change what was given to me on my very first Hobonichi journal. I did, however, find this gorgeous notebook cover at the thrift store, which worked out perfectly. So I have been keeping this in here. Initially, I thought, perhaps I would carry over this cover into future Hobonichi Cousins, but as you may know, I am not currently writing in Hobonichi Cousin. So this has sort of turned into the permanent home for this particular journal, which I kind of love. Now, I do have a couple of little trinkets tucked into these slots here, some packaging from some pins that I had bought from an artist, and just another little insert from my scrapbook ephemera. And then we dive into the actual journal. I am still so in love with this title page. It's a combination of several different stickers and papers that I had been saving for a special occasion, and I decided this was it. This journal was my special occasion, and I love to look back at this. I did not do a whole lot with these intro pages. I never really decided on anything, and so they're just gonna look like this forever now, unless I change it at some point later. We move into my calendar pages. When I was in this book, this was a very functional planner and journal at the same time, so I've got several things that were written down as reminders to actively use this as my calendar. And then as the days would progress, I'd go in and add just whatever little stickers or pieces of junk that I collected throughout the month. I had each section marked off with a paper clip with just a little charm attached, something cute and happy. They are a bit heavy for the thin pages in this book, so maybe not something I would do again, but I've left them in there as a memory of how I was using this book last year. And then we have my weekly pages. I love, love, love how these early weekly pages turned out. The system didn't end up sticking quite as well because I was using these hourly markers to sort of document what I was spending my time on each day, but ultimately it was too exhausting to try and keep a to-do list in one planner and then also keep up with hourly updates in this planner. But I love I love the decoration I was able to do back when I was fully focusing on decorating each week. So much cute stuff here. I love these pages. I love looking back at this, looking back at what my days looked like, because I did try my best to make my various stickers and attached junk relevant to the day that I had just had. So, you know, a filming day, I might have a camera. On a day that I cooked peppers, I might have the sticker off of my peppers. So it really is a fun way to look back on what any given week looked like at a glance. Some of these are so fun. We have the week that we adopted Rue. Already so much fun to look back on some of these memories. We got some Halloween pages. Moving into November, some very cozy vibes going on. Getting into Christmas. I love all of the cozy sweaters, little pine trees I was able to stick in here. And then nothing written on this page because this was when I moved into my 2026 book. So I stuck in whatever little bits I could find, but at this point I was very much dedicated to my new book. And then I used this blank page to insert some writing prompts because I was using a lot of this very large space on my daily pages to just sort of write something. Generally related to memory keeping in some way, but just trying to get myself to do a bit more free writing. So I have some writing prompts that were nice and easy to flip back on when necessary. And then we're moving into these daily pages. Each month has a cover page, and I did go with my Winnie the Pooh theme. So we've got a little piglet just tossing his message out into the open water. I love these early pages too because I was so excited to be working in this book that I was spending a considerable amount of time making these fun looking pages. And I did my best to continue this throughout the year, but my energy definitely waned when I had to put some attention back into some of my other projects. Some of these are so cute though. Now we're starting to see some of the days where I was not quite keeping up with the full page of journaling, which at the time I had this grand vision that every page would look like this, that it would look essentially like a published book, which is a little wild to assume or expect of myself. Because I love how these pages have turned out. But to be doing this every single day was ambitious, and I applaud myself for how much I accomplished, but that's a lot of writing, especially for a journal that was a project in itself. You know, I wasn't doing this writing toward any other end other than just having things documented, which is a great end. I love documenting, if you hadn't noticed. I love scrapbooking, I love journaling. But I also love doing other projects. And I love documenting in ways that I can share, in ways that maybe feel like they're moving the needle in some way towards some goal. Yeah, we're getting into some blank pages now at this point. And not fully blank, obviously. I was journaling in this column, my daily doings, but the additional reflection just didn't quite get there. And that's not to say I won't ever go in and fill in some of this space, but, you know, I'm not holding my breath. I am totally fine with leaving it as it authentically was when I wrapped up this time period. I love this September cover still. So cute. I believe that having all of this white space sort of, I don't know that it helped my brain in particular with trying to keep up a writing habit, because it did become more about filling space rather than, some days I might have a ton to write. I might have 2 pages worth to write. And some days I might not have anything to say. And that's okay. Like I've said, I have really enjoyed working in this book, but I want to move toward writing as a habit more so than writing as a project. Something that there's no way to get behind on so much as just, am I taking care of my brain by doing my journaling? Am I sitting down and just reflecting periodically? Flipping through this, I do wonder if I should try the smaller Hobonichi someday in the future. Right now I'm still in my weeks and I am still really loving that. But I do just love how this looks. And on days when I didn't have quite as much to say, I was able to add in, say, a large piece of ephemera that sort of represented the day. We can see I have already lost the E in reading list. That's not ideal. I should probably find a new E to stick down there. Something about this glue does not agree with my Hobonichi paper. I feel like I've had some issues with that recently, so it might be time to look into a new type of glue stick. Oh, interesting. I actually have the title Funny Stuff written out and then a couple of little penciled in notes for something I wanted to write about. So maybe I should write some of those in before I fully forget what is happening on those days. All right, I have that updated, so now I won't forget what those notes were supposed to mean. And we may continue. You can see I was definitely burning out on this book a little bit at this point. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, but just because there was a lot of space to fill and not a lot of spare time going on. Around December, I started having a bit of an easier time filling things in because there are a lot of year-end activities happening. I wrap up my reading goal for the end of the year, so a lot of book reviews I was able to write in. I did some painting, which I love. I want to come back to this in my current journal. That was so much fun. And then I wrapped up the year with a very brief thank you note to 2025. I still have some space here. I think I ran out of thoughts for my prompt here. But I also, in these final blank pages, inserted my reading for the year. I printed out just a little copy of each of these book covers and tried to give a rating. I didn't end up rating these last ones. I should go fill that in at some point. Actually, while I'm here, let's wrap some of that up too. For a lot of the titles throughout this journal, I did this very lazy bubble lettering, and I ended up kind of really liking it, where I just wrote out whatever word I wanted to be in my title, and then I just go back over it another time, trying to give a little bit of space in between the original and the tracing that I'm doing to give it sort of a bubble letter feel, but like I let it be messy. If I need to like go over something a second time, third time, I just kind of let it happen. I don't know. I ended up really liking how simple this was to do and ended up with a fun, handmade sort of vibe by doing that. Okay, that one's not very good. I do have a bit of trouble when I've already put some sort of insert on the back because the texture of the page gets a little wonky when I do that. There we go. That's probably good enough. But yeah, these book pages on the back sort of messed that up. I think I had grand plans too to write sort of a review of what my reading life looked like this year, write about some of my favorite books and sort of what genres I was into. That didn't happen. Maybe someday it will, but I'm not counting on it. I inserted my Christmas cards that I got last year, thought that was fun. And then I have kind of a funky little page. I had an extra photograph from my scrapbook that the colors printed all weird, so I pasted that into the back, added in some extra little bits, extra little clippings that I didn't use elsewhere in the journal, and then I used this favorites page to just put in my favorites for the year. I've got video games, books, songs, just a page to sort of commemorate whatever I was obsessing over that year. Oh, and then my top 100, I used my Spotify top 100 songs from the year and just filled those in. I thought that would be a fun way to go back and look at the year and see what the soundtrack was. And then most of the rest of these pages, I don't think I really did anything to. Oh, I do have a gifts page. We love doing Christmas gifts around here, and I have not been the best about documenting what's been given or received. I've got like phone notes from previous years, so this year it finally has a home that I can look back on if I'm ever wondering. And then that, aside from this stamp and some pen testing, is the end of this book. I'm glad I did this. I really love how some of these spreads came out, and I think having the extra room did push me to do more reflection when I was just coming out of a journaling slump. So in that sense, I did a lot more writing than I had been the previous year, which was great. Am I planning on doing this again anytime soon? Probably not. I have several other journal ideas that I want to try out, and just different journaling goals than I did at this time. All that said though, this is such a treat to flip back through. I feel like I always assume that most of my days are vastly unimportant, vastly uninteresting, but looking back at this, I mean, I was going to weddings, I was watching family members get older, I was adopting our puppy. So it's great to be able to look back through this. I think that's part of why I love having a daily journal so much, is you never know what day is going to change your life, which that sounds a little silly. I know that sounds like overly romantic, but it's true. I have lots of journals from throughout the years documenting how I was feeling during times that at the time did not feel very remarkable, but looking back, I can see how lots of things were fitting together, lots of things were changing, even if I couldn't quite tell. Sometimes you just need some distance to be able to see the bigger picture. And that's what this book is for me. And I love that. I love seeing what all of these days individually look like to form a very chunky story. I hope there was some inspiration to be found in this video and in this book. If you take one thing away, I would say that it's just to keep on journaling. I truly believe in that. That said, I need to get back to working on my current writing, so this is making its way onto the archive shelf. And if you're interested to see what my journaling looks like currently, I have plenty of videos of this journal already on the channel, and there are plenty more to come, so stick around because there's a lot more where this came from. But in the meantime, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time.